So, back in October of 2025, a long-standing regional alliance just went up in smoke. We're talking about Pakistan launching a series of really dramatic airstrikes deep inside Afghanistan. Now, Pakistan was once the Taliban's main supporter, so let's break down how a strategy that lasted for decades could end in open warfare.
And yeah, that really is the central, baffling question here, isn't it? How on earth did we get to this point? Why would a country turn its military on a group it helped put in power? The answer, as you can imagine, is complicated, and it points to a really dangerous breakdown of security in the region.
To get a handle on this, let's just walk through the timeline. It all kicks off in August 2021. The Taliban take Kabul, and you see celebrations in Islamabad. But that good feeling, it didn't last long. Over the next 4 years, Pakistan gets hit by this terrifying wave of militant attacks. And it all leads up to these unprecedented airstrikes in October 2025, which then sparked a week of brutal border clashes. And now, we're looking at a very, very fragile ceasefire. The whole situation turned on a dime, and it got violent fast.
And if you want to know what's really driving this, you have to look at the staggering human cost. This isn't just about politics. According to a think tank based in Islamabad, more than 2,400 people have been killed in Pakistan just this year from militant violence. A number that high tells you one thing. For Pakistan, this has become an existential crisis right at home.
All right, so to really understand this fight, you have to know who is actually fighting whom. And the key to the whole thing is realizing that when we say the Taliban, we're actually talking about two different distinct groups.
So on one side, you've got the Afghan Taliban. That's the group running the government in Kabul, the very same group Pakistan backed for decades. But on the other side, you've got the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. You'll hear them called the TTP. Now, they're ideological brothers with the Afghan Taliban, but, and this is crucial, they're a totally separate organization. And their goal is to overthrow the state of Pakistan. This distinction is literally the heart of the entire conflict.
This quote right here just perfectly captures the whiplash. Back in 2021, Pakistan's Prime Minister, Imran Khan, was praising the Taliban's victory, calling it a moment of liberation for Afghanistan. There's this real sense of optimism, a belief that this was going to bring stability and, of course, Pakistani influence.
You fast forward to today, and all that optimism is just gone. The bottom line is this. Pakistan's official reason for the airstrikes is that the Afghan Taliban are giving safe harbor to TTP militants. They believe these fighters are then crossing the border to launch attacks. So Islamabad is pointing the finger directly at Kabul.
But an explosion of violence like this doesn't just happen out of nowhere. It's the end result of a very long, very high-stakes gamble by Pakistan, a gamble that is now, well, clearly backfired. Let's take a look at how this powder keg was filled over the years.
For decades, Pakistan's entire playbook was built around this one idea: strategic depth. And it was a pretty simple concept, really. The thinking was, by supporting the Afghan Taliban, Pakistan would guarantee a friendly, loyal government on its western border. And that friendly neighbor would give Pakistan security, especially when it came to its long, intense rivalry with India. This wasn't just a policy, it was the policy.
And, on top of this huge TTP problem, the relationship was already cracking under the weight of some old wounds. There's the Durand Line, a border drawn by the British that no Afghan government, Taliban or not, has ever accepted. Then you add Pakistan's recent decision to deport Afghan refugees and the fact that India has been having successful diplomatic chats with the Taliban. You can see how all of that created a perfect storm of mistrust.
So, what all this does is shine a huge spotlight on a massive contradiction that has been sitting at the core of Pakistan's security policy for a very long time. And now, well, the chickens are coming home to roost.
Here's the paradox in a nutshell. For years, Pakistan was fighting its own war on terror inside its borders, going after groups like the TTP. But at the exact same time, it was actively supporting and giving shelter to other militant groups like the Afghan Taliban, who were busy attacking its neighbors. It was an incredibly dangerous double game.
And here is how that whole strategic depth idea backfired so spectacularly. When the Afghan Taliban actually won, Pakistan didn't get the obedient, friendly government it was expecting. Nope. Instead, that victory massively emboldened the Pakistani Taliban, the TTP. They looked at their ideological brothers winning next door and thought, hey, we can do the exact same thing here in Pakistan. So the conclusion that the source material makes is pretty blunt. This crisis is a self-inflicted wound. The fire that's now burning out of control in Pakistan's border regions was fueled for years by its very own policies. Okay, so
Where does all this leave the region? The current path of just escalating the fighting is creating a really unstable future. But are there any other options on the table?
The analysis we're looking at is pretty clear on this. Bombing Afghanistan is not the answer. In fact, it's being called a major strategic mistake. Why? Because a long, messy conflict in Afghanistan doesn't weaken groups like the TTP. It actually creates the perfect chaotic environment for them to grow stronger, to recruit more fighters. It just pours fuel on the fire.
So what would a real path towards stability look like? Well, first, it would mean finally, once and for all, ending that contradictory policy of picking and choosing which militant groups to support. It would mean putting serious diplomatic talks ahead of military action. It would also mean looking inward, addressing the root causes of the insurgency inside Pakistan itself. And finally, tackling thorny, long-standing issues like the Durand Line border through dialogue, not force.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question at the heart of this whole crisis. Is it really possible for a country to find peace and security with its neighbors when its own decades-long strategy is the very thing that's fueling the fire right in its own backyard?